Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome to this Star Savior video. So in this Star Savior video, we'll talk about the best PvE team formations for the AFK stages or the operation stages where you want to push as much as possible to get more NOA funds or resources. So for this part, there's a few team compositions. I'll try to break down the team compositions and talk about the units or the core units for the team that you need to hunt for, and also break down why each of this team is really strong based off my own experience playing the game for the past 2 months. So without further ado, we'll talk about the two best teams, the two strongest teams on paper, and why they are the strongest. One is the LD team, Light and Dark team, and the other one is the Double Defender team right here. So you can see that on the recommendation scale, it's a full 5-star highlighted in red. So they are hands down the strongest team. And the LD team is really strong because LD, Light and Darkness, they have very little elemental counters except for themselves. So when you're fighting all the different stages, you don't actually break that easily if the boss's element actually counters you, because you have Light to cover the Dark element, you have Dark to cover the Light element units, and then Light and Dark is neutral against all the other elements. So this is where this team is very solid on the offensive end. And if you do have Stardress Acera right here with high enough limit breaks or potential breaks, then you'll be able to get a lot of heals and sustain for the team. So Lacey is also a DPS that can be placed in front because of a passive that is able to recover a little bit of HP and action gauge whenever she's attacked. So you have these two as your two frontliners, and then you have other DPSs. So for this team, I think Lacey will be quite important for the Dark DPS portion because she can be a good single target unit, she can be a good AoE unit, which makes her really flexible. Luna is very AoE centric, so AoE centric is good for all this operation stage push because you have stages with multiple units. So for Luna's case, I think this unit is a little bit replaceable in terms of the coverage. You can use other AoE units, like you don't have to run a full Light and Dark unit because you have Acera, you have Lacey, and then if you're running like Sayla as one of your carries, then you already have the Light and Dark DPSs. So for this slot, it can be either another tank or another DPS that gives you the AoE coverage, or even a buffer that can give you more damage for your other carries. So this is the Light and Dark team. So these are all the different replacements. But generally speaking, Acera is the most important to pivot the sustain for the team. And then Lacey is important for the Dark coverage because there isn't really a lot of good Dark AoE DPSs. So Lacey is the best and the most easily accessible. So these two will be the core. And then if you want to call it a Light and Dark team, then you need at least one Light unit, and then you have one utility unit to cover the 4th slot. Okay, so the next team is the Double Defender strategy. This team is actually really niche in a sense. You need very specific tanks, which are Emily and Ed, because the idea of this Double Defender strategy is Emily being able to shield and buff your ally and do AoE damage with her ultimate, with Ed being able to gut and absorb damage for the allies so that your other units can survive and output damage or heal right here. So for this team, it is important to note that you will need this passive over here known as Careful Tactics, which applies to the defender, which are your tanks, for the additional Nova Force increase at the start of the turn. So this is actually really crucial in a sense because Nova Force is the additional buffs to the skill of your unit for even more damage push and even more utility in terms of your team performance. So this team is actually more niche than the previous one because the previous team is a Light and Dark team. So you just need like Lacey plus another Light unit and you have enough sustain and maybe another tank or AoE, you can call it a Light and Dark team. This one specifically, you'll need these two tanks. And then for the substitutes, the DPS can be substituted out, the healers can be substituted out for another healer. So for this team over here, Lacey is the default firepower or the DPS because she is the most versatile and the most elemental neutral carry, like I mentioned multiple times. So this is why she's here, but there's a whole bunch of replacements. As long as your carry has some sort of DPS or has a lot of damage to support the firepower portion, then it would be good enough for the team. So for Acera's utility, I think she's the best healer, but let's say you already have Ed and Emily, you don't have Acera, then you can use other healers for this team as well. Because this slot is just for the buffs as well as the heals to keep the team alive. So you can use any other buffers or healers in the place of Acera. Obviously, she's the best one. So that's for the 2-defender team. For this team itself, I think the other tanks just doesn't match up to Ed and Emily. So you specifically need these two. Although the latest unit, the collab unit, Hilde or Hilda or Hild, she's a pretty decent tank based off of the initial JP guides. So there is a possibility that she can be fitted into this double defender strategy. So this is team idea number 2, the double defender strategy. More niche because you need these 2 specific tanks or the strongest tanks in the game, and you need these careful tactics to maximize your Nova Force gain from your defenders. So that's for this team over here. Okay, so the third team, the tank healer composition, is the one that I run on my own JP account. So for this one, the core units will be Emily and Stardress Acera, or Emily plus another really good healer. So this tank healer strategy provides you with the ability to take damage on the tank and the ability to sustain with the healers, and then you have other units for the buffs or the damage in the back line right here. So this is the team that I'm running on my JP server, as you guys have seen on my previous video. So Charles right here has a really amazing buff, which is able to further buff up Lacey by buffing her critical damage. And then Lacey is able to self-buff, do good AoE damage, perform really well against most stages. So she's the ideal DPS. But for the DPS as well as the buffer portion, you can run a bunny version of Charles here. So the bunny version of Charles has an AoE attack buff. So this will allow your whole team to perform more damage and also have a really powerful single target damage dealer. There's a lot of option for Charles. Any buffer, any good single target, or like a DPS that has buff or like AoE buff is a good replacement. And then for Lacey's case, as usual, any good carries that is able to do AoE damage can be in this slot. In fact, this is actually the most cost efficient or the most free-to-play friendly team, because you can actually run the base version of Acera together with this team and then have another buffer for Charles slot. Because the idea of this team is that you have this sustain in these 2 units or these 2 positions, and then you just survive until your carry does enough damage to finish the opponent off. So for this team over here, this is the tank healer composition, probably the most free-to-play friendly, because specifically you just need a really good tank. Ideally Emily, because she's the best tank right now in my honest opinion, and then Acera is the best healer, and then you can choose the other units right here. So that's with regards to the tank healer composition. Now for the 4th team, we have the quadruple DPS team. For this team, as the name suggests, you're going to feature 4 DPS units, but even if you don't run 4 DPS, you can actually just run Acera plus 3 DPS as well. The idea is basically finishing the opponent before your whole team dies. So if you have 3 of the top tier carries to be featured for the PvE side, then having Acera will greatly increase your survival with her buffs as well as heals and debuff removal. So I think 3-1 will be a little bit more versatile compared to 4-0. So this is the 4-0 DPS. So you want to feature the strongest DPS. And right here we have Lacey and Bunny Girl Charles, because these 2 DPSs, they are able to survive with their inbuilt ability, right? Lacey's passive can recover some HP. Bunny Charles' Nova Burst on her ultimate allows her to recover HP as well. So they're your frontliners, and then you have your buffers in the backline as well as Bunny Claire as the DPS. So as the name suggests, you can replace all the units with any good DPSs, right? Any AoE DPSs or buffers for the team. Or you can even run 3-1 with Stardress Acera. So that will be for this one. It's actually really strong, and you will probably only break on stages where the opponent has a lot of AoE. Because like if the opponent has a lot of AoE, you will just like slowly wither down your whole team, and because your team has no sustain, everyone will die after a few AoE smacks from the boss's side. So that's the weakness of this team. But generally speaking, you can modify the 4 DPS teams according to the elements. So you have some elemental coverage across the board, and then if you have enough stats, you'll be able to push through the stages as well. So that's for this quadruple attacker or 3-1 team. So there's actually one more team recommendation, but this team is highly similar to the tank healer team, the Emily Acera team, because like I think the core of this team builds off these 2 units, and then you have like other DPSs or other tankers to fit into the other archetypes. So we're not gonna talk too much about this one. But basically for your general team builds, you want at least 1 sustain. So the best sustain is Acera, or you want like at least 2 mid shields to soak up damage for the team, and then have enough firepower to finish the stage before the boss snipes you. And one thing you guys will realize is there isn't really any single elemental team recommendation for the operation stage, because there are certain stages where there could be 2 elements in like the stages itself, right? There are some 2 stages, and then Stage 1 is one element and Stage 2 could be another element. This is where the LD team is the strongest in terms of versatility, because you basically have all the elements covered and you're not weak to a particular one, so you won't get bricked that easily. So that's the idea of all these team builds in general. For the most powerful team, I'll say it's between this one as well as this one, because for this one you can just survive really well, and if you don't die, you can just finish the boss fight off eventually for the operation stages. Because another thing for the operation stages to note is that there's no turn clear limit. So you can finish this in 100 turns and you can finish this in 50 turns. As long as you can finish the fight, you'll be able to push forward. So these two are the strongest team with that idea in mind. So hopefully this video is clear enough to break down the key team ideas and showcase the potential substitutes and units you can sub out so that you can build your best PvE teams for your account. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more. See you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.